Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the PM Skills Lab, Custom Prescriptions for Your Projects, an interactive event dedicated to building and enhancing your project management skills. My name is Ellie Bowett, and I'll be your host for today. Now, I've often heard it said that good project management is the backbone of a successful organization. Whether you're steering a small team or leading large-scale enterprise, skilled project managers bring a structured approach to planning, executing and closing projects, which minimizes risk and maximizes efficiency. They possess the ability to coordinate diverse teams, manage resources effectively, and communicate clearly with stakeholders, which is crucial for aligning project goals with business objectives. Additionally, strong project management practices foster a culture of accountability and continuous improvement, enabling businesses to adapt swiftly to market changes and stay competitive. So, by investing in the growth and development of project managers, businesses can drive innovation, improve customer satisfaction, and achieve sustainable growth. Today, we have an impressive lineup of speakers who are eager to help you elevate your project management capabilities and share their experiences. They'll be providing you with valuable tools, techniques, and strategies to manage projects efficiently and effectively. To get the most out of today's session, we encourage you to engage fully. The panel are here to answer your questions, and our team are monitoring the chat, so please do introduce yourself and pop any questions you may have in there. If you have a question, please start it with Q and a colon so that we can make it easier for the team to pick up the question and get it to our panel later in the show. So without further ado, let's get started, and please join me in welcoming our first speaker. Dr. Ian Clarkson is a highly experienced consultant, author, trainer, and speaker with over 20 years' experience in project program management, organizational change, and learning. Ian was an author of APM Box 6, a member of the reference group for Prince 2 6th edition, a member of the Global Review Group for MSP 5th edition, on the Technical Advisory Board for the APM Higher Apprenticeship in Project Management, and also for the update of the APM suite of certifications. Ian is a regular contributor for Project Manager Today magazine and a blogger. Thanks so much for joining us today, Ian.
Lovely. Thanks, Ellie. Delighted to be here on this panel session, and really looking forward to contributing and answering questions and just having a good chat.
Thank you. So also joining us today is Ryan Holzhausen. Ryan has worked at ITonlinelearning for the past 7 years. He's a student mentor and tutor who works closely with the course development and production teams. Ryan's proudest achievements include gaining his certifications in both Prince 2 and Agile project management. It's really great to have you with us, Ryan.
Thank you very much for having me today. I'm very happy to be here, happy to be alongside Ian and Paddy and yourself, Ellie. So I'm happy to be here to represent ITonlinelearning today. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Ryan. And up next, we have Paddy Dhanda. Paddy is the Agile Practice Director at QA and is the former head of Agile Learning for a global investment bank, where he rolled out Agile education to over 100,000 Agilists. He specialized as an Agile practitioner since 2004, taking on various product delivery roles, including head of business analysis, chief product owner, Agile trainer and coach. He's also a guest lecturer at the University of Birmingham, delivering the MBA program. And Paddy aspires to follow Gandhi's mantra, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So thank you for living that mantra today, Paddy, and joining us to share your experience.
Oh, thanks, Ellie, and yeah, welcome everyone. Really pleased to be here. And I'm also into my superpower, so I did wear my Marvel T-shirt today just to keep that theme going. So yeah, hopefully we'll be sharing a few superpowers today.
Lovely, thanks, Paddy. So our final panelist for today is Cath Convery. Cath was due to join us in person, but has had a scheduling conflict with a client and can no longer be here. But thankfully, due to the wonders of modern technology, Cath has been able to pre-record her content, so we'll still be able to take part in today's event. So here is Cath to introduce herself.
So my name's Cath Convery, and I work for a company called Explosive Learning Solutions because we like to make a big impact. We're based in Oxfordshire on Harwell campus, which is sort of in the middle of England if you've never been to England. It's about an hour from London if you drive, or about 35 minutes by train. I've been running Explosive Learning Solutions for the last 18 years, and prior to that, I worked for the government. I was in the military, actually, so I've got a real close affinity for service personnel, and I like helping them to make that transition from what they're presently doing, which is serving in His Majesty's Armed Forces in the UK, to a civilian sector. I also do quite a lot of work in contract and procurement work across all government departments in the United Kingdom, and have worked abroad extensively, as have most of my team. We love this sort of thing. We love giving advice. We love helping people improve their qualifications in order to get additional work, but also just make sure that they've got those key skills that help them resolve problems in the projects that they're working on. Really great to join you. I'm sorry I'm not there in person.
Thanks, Cath. Okay, so our panelists today are clearly exceptional, but during today's session, we also want to hear from you. So we've identified a number of skills every project manager needs. And when we look at our case studies, which we're going on to next, we'd love to hear your view on the skills you think these project managers need to help solve their problem. Do they need to beef up their stakeholder engagement, go back to the drawing board with a business case, or focus more on planning? So to vote for your recommended skills, head over to slido.com, event number 2394152, and answer the poll that's waiting there for you. We'll come to the audience results for the first case study after we hear from the panelists. So let's welcome my colleague Shanice with our first case study from a project manager who needs your help.
My name is Sarah, and I'm currently leading an IT project for a healthcare client. I would like some advice from the panel today to help me navigate an issue. Throughout this project, my team is being bombarded with requests for new features beyond our project's original scope. These constant additions are causing delays and budget overruns, putting the success of our project at risk. I'm struggling to communicate the impact of these scope changes with the stakeholders, and I'm constantly reallocating resources to accommodate new requirements. This is causing me difficulty in managing client expectations amidst the evolving project dynamics, and I am seeking guidance from the panel on how to address these hurdles and regain control over my project.
Okay, thanks, Shanice. Right, panel, what are your thoughts on how Sarah can build her project management skills? Okay, so Ian, we'll hear from you first on this one and your thoughts for Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. So you can see I've kind of held up two things, kind of project planning and control and better business case, because there's two things in this for me, really. The first is all about kind of like defining the scope. That's a really common problem I see a lot with organizations, is not getting that kind of what we call the scope baseline, not kind of clearly defining what it is we're doing, because if we don't know what we're doing, then we really don't know what we're doing on the project. So that's kind of where project planning and control in particular can help us kind of get to grips with the requirements, get to grips with actually what the scope is, and actually kind of baselining that. The other side of it then is business cases. And I'm a really big fan of always bringing it back to the why we're doing this. So when we're talking here about kind of like the communication with the stakeholders, I'm really there thinking about bringing it all the way back to why we doing this in the first place. It's very easy to forget you came to drain the swamp when you're busy fighting the crocodiles. And so when you're in that kind of mix of change control, actually, why are we here? Let's bring it back. And I have a little cliche, if you like, that I always say in project management, which is, and I'll probably say this quite a bit over the next few cases, always keep your eye on the why. Always keep your eye on the why. Why are we doing it? Relate everything back to that why are we doing it?
Thanks, Ian. That's great. Some great advice there. Paddy, your thoughts for this project manager, please.
Oh, here we go. Right. I've gone with Agile, as is, hopefully you're probably guessing anyway that I'm a bit of an Agile geek, and the project planning and control sort of skill set. Now, I guess we've got to probably really find out, why are we getting a lot of these new features coming through? Is that because the current requirements just aren't fit for purpose? Is it that things have moved on? So where we have a situation where we're in uncertain conditions, where the requirements are uncertain, often Agile can be a great aid for us, because what we can do is we can identify the most critical things and do them now. And then as people identify new requirements and learn new things based on feedback and actually getting to use the platform, they can then discover lots of new features. So having that kind of Agile mindset could be really useful in this situation. Having this sort of single backlog and time boxing the project as well into these shorter iterations, so we're getting that quick feedback. And obviously the project planning and control is great discipline, just to make sure we're not just bringing in requirements ad hoc, because even in an Agile world, we've got to do it with discipline.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Paddy. Okay, Ryan, your thoughts for Sarah, please.
Well, for Sarah, I'm going to say stakeholder engagement. And I'm also going to say project planning and control. Now, from looking at the situation that Sarah's encountered here, I think navigating scope changes and managing stakeholder expectations are a very common challenge that a lot of us have probably experienced, especially in IT project management, especially in a dynamic field like perhaps healthcare. So there are some strategies that I think could benefit Sarah in the long run. I think establishing clear scope boundaries would be something that that should be looked at as well. So define and document your scope. So you ensure that the project scope is clearly defined and documented and approved by all the stakeholders at the beginning of the project. And I suppose that can go back, I believe, to what Ian said earlier about the why, right back in the beginning, looking at the why, in the beginning of the project. And have a good change control process so that you can implement a formal change control process where all the new feature requests are going to be evaluated for their impact on the project's timeline and on its budget, and of course on the resources that might be available, so that only the really essential changes could then be approved.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Ryan. Cath has also provided her advice for Sarah, so let's have Cath's view, please.
Hi, Sarah. Great to meet you, and thank you so much for your time today. You sound as though you're working at a really interesting project, and it's the type of thing that I often often hear about, particularly with contract managers or people that are working in intelligent client functions in the public service. So what I think that you're saying is that you've got this scope creep going on, and there's an issue with stakeholders. Well, number one, I'd be making sure that I've got some people trained in project planning and controls in my ICF. So number one, I'd have some project planning and control teaching. I think that you're going to need to change your business case. So I'm going to have better business cases. It's my favorite area in any case. 5-case business model, really important for the public sector. That's what it sounds as though you're doing. And I really think that you need to have some understanding of the 5-case business model and indeed the Treasury's guidance in that space. So this would be my number two. If you've got a specific problem with stakeholders, so I'd quite like to add in stakeholder management and engagement. I think it's a really nice little course, and it works really well alongside change management. So you could do one or the other of those two. So one of those two would really help in that space. And because you're working on a contract where your scope keeps changing, I'd make sure that I've got some facilitation skills. Now, again, this works alongside your stakeholder engagement. It also works alongside that business case piece. If you're facilitating a requirement set, which you'll need to do in your business case, then that might be a really useful tool to have in your armory. So I'm going to go for a whole 5 areas, but I have said that some of them cancel each other out. So 5 paddles for me, not just one. You get 5 for 1. Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for that, Cath. Okay, so panel, real diverse set of advice from you guys for our project manager, but what do our audience think? Let's have a look at the results from poll 1, please. Okay, so there's a bit of an agreement here. Project planning and control has come up a lot. Sarah needs to go and consider, how she's planning the project, what techniques she's using to adjust the plans as things move along. Stakeholder engagement, that came up a couple of times as well, really engaging with people involved in the project and making sure they understand how everything fits together. And then number 3, we have BBC, which came up from a couple of the panelists as well. So better business case, coming back to the why of the project. So that's great. So thanks very much for the audience for voting and for our panel. Audience, do stay in Slido. There'll be another opportunity for you to vote soon. So let's welcome back Shanice and hear from our second project manager looking for some advice.
I'm Mark, an experienced project manager, and lately I've been grappling with the complexities of team dynamics. Leading a diverse software development team, I've noticed a troubling trend: conflicts and breakdowns in communication among team members. These tensions are hampering our collaboration, slowing down our progress, and putting our project success at risk. I'm struggling to pinpoint the root cause of these issues and need guidance on how to foster a more cohesive team environment. I'm eager to improve our communication channels, build trust among team members, and address conflict effectively to boost productivity and keep our projects on track. Can I have some advice, please?
Thank you, Shanice. I'm sure there's some familiar problems in there to our project managers watching in the audience. So panel, let's see those paddles. And audience, your poll is now open for you to recommend skills for this project manager. Ryan, we're going to come to you first on this one for some advice, please.
Well, one of the ones I'm going to go with over here first is facilitation. Managing team dynamics can indeed be challenging, and especially in a very diverse sort of software development team where communication and collaboration are quite critical. So there are some strategies to help you address these issues, and I suppose at the end of the day, foster a more cohesive team unit. So what you need to really be able to do is to ensure that there's sort of full participation of members by, managing the dominant voice and encouraging the quiet ones, or the people with the alternative views to sometimes get involved. Sometimes people might get frustrated because they don't feel like they do have a voice. And really and truly, to try and identify the root causes, you can conduct surveys or interviews. And what a lot of people fail to do is simply observation. Spend time observing team interactions to identify patterns and possible sources of tension as well.
That's great. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, Paddy, we'll come to you next for your advice, please.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to build upon Ryan's point around sort of facilitation and really making sure we nail the team dynamics. I mean, people are unpredictable, and that's one of the challenges we have when we're working in teams is there is no simple formula that's always going to work. Now, there was some really cool research done by Google a few years ago. It was in a project called Project Aristotle. Google wanted to know what is that secret ingredient that makes a team great. And they looked at over 180 of their best performing teams to try and find that secret ingredients. Now, after lots of interviews, lots of insights, they boiled it down to about 5 key characteristics. And I think in this situation, if we can help create some of this in that team, it would be great. So number 1 was psychological safety. So that's where people are, they don't feel afraid to be able to take risks and don't feel like they're going to be judged. So really being able to create that atmosphere in that team where they do feel that they can say what they want. Some of the others included dependability. So feeling that you sort of build that trust with others. Structure and clarity. So really giving the team that clarity of what it is that we're expecting from them. What are those key deliverables? Meaning as well is another one. So having some purpose behind the work that we're doing and really bringing that to the table. And really finally is the impact, going back to Ian's point earlier about the why. If I don't know why I'm doing this, then the work isn't going to feel so valuable. So really looking at all of those different aspects, I think could really help in this situation.
Sorry, Ian, I'm not sure you heard me then. It's
Oh,
over
sorry.
to
Yeah,
you.
sorry. My apologies. I lost you for a minute. Yeah, just kind of really building on that. Really, I'm going to bring in stakeholder engagement. We're talking about communication here, and kind of good stakeholder engagement ultimately leads to something like communication. So looking at what communication styles, what communication methods work for different people. So it's kind of understanding that different team members. There's also a bit in here about kind of more, you could almost get into a little bit kind of almost like Maslow and kind of motivational theory a little bit there, couldn't you, in terms of kind of what are the motivations for people. So I definitely think kind of stakeholder engagement. Facilitation. Now, we all work remotely, and kind of the world's a kind of global marketplace now. But I'm a big fan of things like empathy maps and things like that, where where we get together virtually or otherwise, and we look at kind of what the team dynamics are. We look at kind of how the team wants to operate, but getting the best out of that requires some really good facilitation skills. So with that opportunity to bring people together, and there's loads of great tools out there around, some of you might have heard of kind of like Mural and Miro and some of those kind of like interactive tools where you can do all of this stuff on with templates on there. I think a good facilitator can bring the best out of that. But ultimately, I'm just picking up on kind of what ones were saying. What's the one thing that kind of binds us as a team, as a project team? It's the why we're doing it. It's the benefits. Remember, we're doing these projects to deliver some kind of benefit. Or as I'm increasingly seeing now, we're using the word value. What's the value that we are getting nowadays? And always bring it back to that. So understanding what that project, what that benefit, what that value means to the individual. So my three: stakeholder engagement, definitely, facilitation, and benefits management.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ian. So we've had a consistent view on facilitation, at least across the panel. Let's hear what Cath thinks.
So Mark, you've got a really interesting problem there. Again, you're working in software, and I seem to be talking to a lot of people that are working in software development at the moment. And I'd love to be able to put up a panel that was to do with Agile, because, I could do an Agile business analyst, I guess. But Agile project management is where you need to be if you're working in software. I suspect that's part of the issue. Again, I don't want to just give you one course, because I think there's multitude of different areas here in your project breakdown. So if you're going to use Agile, you really need facilitation skills. So let's pop that on top. I think that's a really important piece. But I think the key to your problem space is this breakdown in team dynamics. And therefore, I put a couple of things in there. I really like the stakeholder engagement course. But as I've said previously to other contacts and other people that have got similar problems to you, that actually change management works really well inside that pace. So you don't have to do both of those because stakeholder engagement is included in change management. But those would be my 4 big ones for you. Mark, it's been great talking to you. Let's hope that once you've done this training, you'll be up to speed and no more problems. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cath. That was great. Okay, so audience, we've heard our panelist advice. There's been some consistent views across the panel and some inconsistent views across the panel. But what are your thoughts? Look at that panel. So facilitation coming top of the leaderboard for this one. So really suggesting that actually that is a key skill for the project manager, being able to facilitate discussions, encourage people to speak, manage the loud voices. I think one of our panel said as well earlier. That's a really key skill for a project manager to have. And then stakeholder engagement, that one's come up already today, but the role of the project manager in bringing people together really with that stakeholder involvement and stakeholder engagement. And then for the first time today, coming in at number 3 is change management. So the skills that you need to really help bring in the change into the organization. I've heard it said before that if the project is readying the system, for the organization, then change management is readying the organization for the system. So that's really important one for people to have in their toolbox. Thank you very much, audience. That's really helpful. And now we'll come back to Shanice for the next case study that we have for today.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm facing a significant challenge in my role as a project manager. Juggling stakeholder expectations. Currently, I'm overseeing a critical marketing campaign involving multiple stakeholders, including clients, executives, and cross-functional teams. However, I'm constantly bombarded with conflicting demands and shifting priorities from different stakeholders. Balancing these expectations while staying within project scope, budget, and timeline has become increasingly daunting. I'm seeking advice on how to prioritise stakeholder requirements, manage expectations effectively, and foster alignment among stakeholders to ensure the success of our project. Can you help?
Yeah, thank you, Shanice. That certainly sounds like a tricky one. So how would we help Emily? Let's hear first from Paddy on this one. For your thoughts, please.
Oh, thank you, Ellie. So I'm going to go with stakeholder engagement on this one. I'm sure there are others as well that we could throw in here. But I think for me, when I was a business analyst many, many years ago, this was a common problem. We would often have many people in the organization all throwing their requirements at us. And it's difficult to satisfy everybody, right? Like if you think about our daily lives, we have demands from so many different people, and it's sometimes difficult even within families to enable everybody to get what they want. And so I'm going to really suggest a tool that I found super useful in this situation, which is the power interest grid. So that's where, even before we start the requirements process, let's just understand who are the really key people we need to engage with, because there'll be a lot of noise. And we need to weed that out to make sure we're not just putting requirements in just because somebody has a wish to put something forward. So the power interest grid is great because we are able to sort of plot how much influence and power someone has versus how interested they are in the project. And ideally, we want to aim for the stakeholders that have high power and high interest, because they're probably going to be the most important people. So I would probably go with that. And then beyond that, there's lots of techniques that we can use to prioritize things like Moscow, the sort of must have, should have approach. But I think rather than start prioritizing those requirements, we need to take that step back and really make sure we're talking to the right people.
Thank you, Paddy. That's really great advice. Ian, we'll come to you next on this one, please.
So I'm just thinking about that bit which talks about balancing different expectations and staying within scope. So definitely there's this one here, project planning and control. Many years ago, I was doing some work with an organization, and a gentleman there said to me, projects fail at the beginning, they don't fail at the end. And that's has stuck with me for probably a decade now, and I think it's really true. So we need to make sure that we're building the project on solid foundation, scoping it out a bit like the first case study. However, I do like a bit of earned value management. There you go. And where's the camera? There we go. Because it's about keeping on track as well. So just because we've got a good plan, it's a baseline plan. How are we actually going to ensure that we keep on track? Because we know that projects, best laid plans and all of that, kind of just because something seemed a good idea 6 months ago, things change, the world changes, all kinds of stuff happens. How does that impact our project, and how are we monitoring that in order to make sure that we are still going to remain on track? So I'm quite a big fan of earned value, not necessarily as a, let's pop out a load of metrics. I'd be horrified if anybody started talking to their project sponsors or their SROs in terms of, oh, well, the cost performance index is this and the, schedule performance index is this. But it's a really great basis and great tool for us to use to then be able to communicate out kind of what's going on within the project. So set it up correctly, and definitely kind of make sure we're monitoring it correctly as well. And I'll try and get back to the camera. Get the paddles in front of the camera.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. That's great. Okay, so Ryan, let's have your thoughts.
Yeah, firstly, I'm going to go with getting it right in the beginning, like Ian was saying over there. But then I'm going to move over to stakeholder engagement. Now, I know this has been quite a popular one today. But in terms of stakeholders, and you know what Paddy was saying as well, I find to be very, very important. You know, managing stakeholder expectations it is quite common, but it's a complex challenge in project management, particularly in projects that involve multiple stakeholders with conflicting demands. And there are some strategies that you can use to help you to prioritize your stakeholder requirements and manage their expectations effectively, and ultimately foster alignment. So, as Paddy was saying, I think, you know, you need to firstly establish clear communication channels and define and document your project scope. But it's very important to prioritize requirements. And I know that Paddy did touch on it, you know, using Moscow prioritization like you'd have in, you know, Agile PM, looking at your must-haves, your should-haves, your could-haves, and your won't-haves. And that, at the end of the day, will also help you towards, you know, managing those conflicting demands. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's also good about conducting a very thorough stakeholder analysis, and use, you know, a stakeholder matrix like power interest, as Paddy mentioned. So I certainly do agree with that point as well. And I think that would be very, very important. So yeah, I think, you know, stakeholder engagement seems to be quite a big issue here for this particular situation.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. That's great. Okay, so let's have Cath to finish us off on this case study.
Emily, I feel your pain. I've been there. I think that I'm going to start with better business cases. The reason I'm going to start with that is that you've got a changing role here in project management. You don't tell me if you're working in the public or private sector, but if you are working in the public sector or alongside the public sector, so you might be in the private sector, then I think this is an understanding of the business case and an understanding of actually how that is put together is really helpful at so many different layers. So I would pop in better business case on that particular area. But your bigger problems seem to be about keeping the project within project scope, budget and timelines, and to prioritize stakeholder requirements. So I'm keeping business cases in there. I'd quite like to add in, although benefits aren't mentioned at all in the things that you've told us, I'd quite like to add in managing benefits. It goes alongside business cases. I mean, the benefits realization are part of the business cases. They're in the economic case. So I would put them alongside that one, I think. And again, I'm not sure that just one course is going to resolve all your issues. I mean, stakeholder engagement, again, it's a big challenge here with stakeholder work. And we've said it already before, but if you do the change management course, that might help you rather than stakeholder engagement. So I might put that on top of that one. And if you're going to go there, ooh, and again, 5 courses. Facilitation, because that goes with those 2. So I've got 5 courses for you, I'm afraid. You might be able to get away with without stakeholder engagement if you do the change management course and you get it at a higher love level. Love the change management course, one of my favorite courses. So facilitation, change management, business cases and managing benefits. Hope that helps.
That does certainly help, Cath. Thank you. She's like an octopus with all her paddles. So she's doing fabulously holding on to all of those. Thank you, panel. That was a really great variety of skills that our project manager could build on to help with their problem. Let's take a look at what the audience think. Okay, so for this one, with quite a wide majority then, we've got stakeholder engagement. That's come up, I think, in every single one. It's a clear key skill across the board for a project manager to have. Project planning control, great advice there from the panel as well about starting well. And I
Hello, I'm Alex, and I'm up against a major challenge in my role as a project manager. Right now, I'm leading a crucial project aimed at implementing a new IT infrastructure for our organisation. However, we are encountering significant challenges with the business case and project benefits. Our initial projections aren't matching up with reality, and stakeholders are growing sceptical about the project's viability and value. I urgently need guidance on how to address these issues, refine our business case, establish a robust benefits management framework, and rebuild stakeholder confidence. Can you help me prioritise these tasks and steer the project back on track?
Yeah, thank you, Shanice. We certainly can help that project manager. So for this one, we're going to go to Cath first.
Okay. Again, I'm really sorry, Alex, but I am going for multiple areas. I always worry when there's a challenge with the business case. For me, it's because we've not got enough project controls in place. So I'm going to put project controls as my number one course here, because I'm not sure that the team is presently using project controls. But your specific request is how to refine your business case. So let's get better business cases in there. Based on the Treasury's guidance, the Green Book, the 5-case business model, understanding that is key to doing most things in working projects. So let's get the better business case in there. If I'm going to be you also mentioned in the discussion you've just had about benefits. So let's layer up benefits. As I've said to others, there is an overlap between benefits and business case. So I might well do that. Do better business cases first, but then, to get that in-depth information, do managing benefits. And although I didn't put it with it previously, one of the skills that's really useful when you're working with larger groups on wicked problems, we call it, is facilitation. So those three go together quite nicely as a package, if you like, or a package of training courses. So I might put those three together. I've still got my benefits control, project planning and controls, because I think that's a big problem on what you're describing here. Do I want to add anything else in? Well, you've talked about rebuilding stakeholder confidence. So I could look at stakeholder engagement, but I'm not. I'm going to go with change management because that is going to help you get from where you are now, your baseline, to the vision that's articulated in the better business case. So in the strategic case for the business case, there will be a vision. Your change management course will help you with the people, getting them from that baseline through to the vision that's described in the strategic case. So I've got 5 courses for you again. I'm sure you weren't expecting 5, but I think if you did those courses, I think it would really help with the problem you've actually got.
Yeah, thanks, Cath. Really showing there how these skills all fit together. And it really is a continuous learning journey as a project manager to pick up these skills. So let's hear from Ryan on this one now, please.
Well, I'm going to start off in third place and agree there with project planning and control. I'm going to go down into second place with managing benefits, and then ultimately, I think the main issue here, better business cases. So, hello, Alex. Addressing discrepancies in your business case and project benefits whilst you're managing your stakeholder skepticism is a critical task. And there are some steps that you can do to refine your business case, because what you really want to do is you want to establish some sort of a robust benefits management sort of framework as well, and then rebuild your stakeholder confidence. So you need to be able to review and refine your business case. So you review the initial assumptions in your business case to identify any that were overly optimistic or incorrect, and then adjust these assumptions based on current data, and then update your projections and look at the cost benefit analysis. So ultimately, I think that is going to be the one that is going to be the best utilized over here, would be perhaps better business cases.
Thank you, Ryan. That was great advice. Audience, after we've heard from the rest of the panel, we'll come to your view and then we're going to go to questions. So if you do have a question for our panel, pop it in the chat now with a queue at the front and the team will pick it up and we'll be able to put it to our panel shortly. Ian, over to you on this one, please.
So I've been rearranging things on my desk in front of me, and I'm up to 7 paddles at the minute. So I think I'm going to need a bigger desk. So I've got 7 paddles. So let me talk you through it. So see if I can get them in front of the camera. Right. So these are my first ones: project planning and control, better business cases, and managing benefits. So this is all about getting things set up properly. Okay, obviously, yes, there's the planning and control in there and making sure we're getting it set up, and there's the business cases, and there's that focus on the why and the benefits. Always, I'd spoken about always keep your eye on the why. So there's those 3 to kind of get them back, set the project up. Then there was the bit about getting buy-in, so I'm going for these 2. Okay. Stakeholder engagement and facilitation, because we're typically talking about like sponsors, executives, SROs, senior leaders to get the buy-in and all of this. So let's know who our audience is. What does it mean to them? I've been in situations with senior management where the way I engage and communicate with senior management is very different to the way I didn't communicate and engage with a project team. So let's know who we're talking to and be able to facilitate that as well. Sometimes it's better done in a group setting. Sometimes it's better done with some of these tools that were spoken about on that. But then it goes on to talk about not meeting expectations. So there's also the bit about, right, okay, once we're off and running, what about these 2? Okay, you see, I do like earned value. I do. So I'm bringing this one back in because it's about making sure that we remain against those in line with what we said in the business case, because this isn't about delivering outputs. You've heard the expression, a means to the end. The project deliverables are the means, the benefits, the value are the end. So as we're making changes and things are happening, how are we actually performing according to our original kind of estimates and plan? And if we're making any changes, what does that actually mean to the people who are going to go on and use it? And that's where the change management becomes, because if we're not taking the outputs and embedding them in kind of operations of business as usual, then what are we actually achieving in the project? So how many was that? That's 7. That's 7. So I'm going for those 7. Let me read them out again. So there was there was project planning, control, managing benefits and better business cases, stakeholder engagement and facilitation, change management, and earned value. There you go. They're my 7. The magnificent 7, if we like.
Thank you, Ian. I think we're really starting to get a sense now of the complexity of the role of the project manager as well. There's these technical skills like earned value, for example, but also the people side of it with facilitation and stakeholder engagement. So such an interesting role. So Paddy, your thoughts?
I'm tempted to tell a joke, a really bad joke, just to start things off on this one. So why don't project managers ever go broke? Because they always have a plan. So I know that's really bad. Anyway, on this one, I've gone for better business cases, which my colleagues also came up with, and managing benefits. I think this one is really focused on that kind of value side. Now, sometimes when I'm running Agile training, I often talk about 3 core components of agility, which is value, flow, and quality. And in this situation, if we focus more on the project and just trying to deliver the project in time, which is your flow and that's your speed, and we focus on things like quality and getting the product built to really high quality, well, imagine doing all of that effort, putting all that effort in, and then at the end, our customers don't really use the product because it didn't meet the expectations, it didn't meet the value that we hoped it would. So value is super, super important. And I'm going to be bold enough to say, I think in this situation, perhaps we should stop the project. Perhaps it's time to take a pause and do nothing, because we may have seen examples out there of construction projects, maybe things to do with train lines. I'm not going to say the word, but there are projects that get commissioned that almost go beyond the point of no return because so much money gets invested, it's difficult to then backtrack. and sometimes it's just better to call it a day. And that's really where your kind of awareness of managing the benefits, building those business cases is super important, so we can do more valuable work on maybe another project.
Yeah, thanks, Paddy. That was a really great answer. I think that was probably our most diverse response to the case study with regard. Frozen again. So, yeah, sorry guys, I think I keep dipping out, but I'm back now. Let's take a look at what the audience thought of that last case study. Okay, so coming out on top for this one, we've got better business cases, and that came up a couple of times across the panel about, really understanding the why and coming back to what is it we're trying to achieve. Second, we have project planning and control, keeping us on track with the techniques of how do we, prioritize what it is that we're doing and make sure we're all following a plan. And then this time coming in third, we have managing benefits. We've had that a couple of times from the panel today, really focusing on the benefits, on the outcomes of the project. So thank you so much, audience. It's really great to see you concurring with our panel, but also providing some alternative skills. So we are now going to go over to some live questions. We've had a broad view on the skills today. We've had some excellent feedback from the panelists. We do have a couple of prizes as well to give away at the end of the event. Two of our audience members will receive a free set of books associated with the skills we've covered today, and they are worth over £300 each. So do stay with us to see if you're one of the lucky ones. But before that, let's take some questions. So the first question that we have from our audience is from George. And the question is, what is earned value? So can anyone give us a bit more of a description on earned value?
I feel I should probably have a go at that because I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, and I quite like it. So earned value, it's a really common kind of technique within project management, which looks at the health of a project and then tries to predict the future performance of the project based on historical trends. And there's different ways of doing that kind of future prediction. And there's a load of metrics that come out of that that can be kind of really useful to help kind of understand what that future trend is. But earned value isn't an end in itself. So for example, if you use the data and the numbers and did all the sums that said, I'm predicting that the project's going to be late and over budget, then that's a trigger for action. So it's another technique. It's a good technique in order to actually kind of give us a bit of a state of health of the project, but it's not the be all and end all. It's about then how do we actually take action off the back of that.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. That's a great description of earned value. And there is a QR code that you can follow to find more about the earned value course and the qualifications associated with it if you're interested in more information. Okay, the next live question we have is from Illa. And Illa says, I am currently on secondment as a project support officer, which ends this September. I would like to progress in my career either as a PSO or change manager. Would a Prince 2, APM, or any other project management certification assist me when I'm looking for jobs, or is gaining project experience essential? Who'd like to answer? That's Ian.
Oh, God.
Ian, we'll go for you then, Paddy, please.
Oh, thank you. A bit of both, really, I think. If you're going to stay in the PMO space, there's some really great stuff out there by the House to PMO, the essentials for project management administrators, analysts, which are kind of very role-based things. So you're looking there around, if you're looking for a particular role, what are kind of the knowledge, skills, behaviors you need for that? So kind of like the essentials for PMO suite of certifications as well. But there's nothing that beats kind of a bit of experience as well. So I'd be looking for opportunities to say, how can you actually start to take on maybe a little bit more responsibility? How can you start to take on maybe a bit of a team, or start to do some reflection on some of the skills that you've got? And do you need to develop in certain areas, and to go out and actually kind of find those opportunities. I think you'll probably find that there's a lot of people will be willing to kind of give those kind of opportunities as well to take on more responsibility. So a bit of both, really.
Thanks, Ian. Paddy?
Yeah, I was just thinking about an analogy of, I don't know, driving a car. Like we learn how to drive, but that doesn't make us great drivers, and it's very much the experience we get after that that helps us become better drivers. But if we don't have that learning up front, putting someone into a car is quite dangerous. And the same with projects, I guess. If we haven't had that grounding and that base, then it can actually do more damage than good. And also, I think, having some form of qualification in a framework or methodology that the organization is using, it just gets us to speak the same language. And I think that's super useful. We've talked a lot about engagement today. How can we possibly engage with the wider team if we're not speaking the same language and they're talking about, I don't know, in the Agile world, sprints and backlogs and retrospectives and all of this foreign language. So I think, going on some form of training is great. And that just gets us talking the same language, but then it's not enough to really, do a great job. We've got to have that experience as well. So finding those opportunities is really important.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Paddy. All right. Our next question is, I'm new to project management and currently operate in the AV integration space. However, I do not necessarily want to stay in this industry for the rest of my career. How would you approach transitioning industries within the PM profession? Ian, I can see your hand. Sorry, it's often something.
So the great news is, project management is a pan-sector skill. Okay, so don't think about you've got a load of experience in the AV industry. Think about you've got loads of experience in project management, and therefore you can take that experience and just drop it into another industry. I came out the automotive industry. That was my background here. I used to work for the automotive company. Do I know anything about cars? No. Can I run a project? Hopefully, yes. Because my skill isn't in automotive industry. My skill is in project management, and everything that was spoken about in all the panels, or the paddles, and everything that my colleagues have said on the panel, talking about the process, so it's talking about the people side of things, not about the particular technology that you're running the projects. So take yourself out of the technology and put yourself into the process, the people, the project management. And I think you'll find that actually you can hop quite easily because they're the skills that you've got.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Ian. Ryan, would you like to add your thoughts to that, please?
Yes, I believe transitioning into project management and a project management career, especially for somebody that's new to the field, would involve some strategic steps to help you to build your relevant skills and to start gaining some experience. And obviously, you want to obtain the necessary credentials as well. So you should maybe look at self-assessment and goal setting. Identify your skills. Assess your current skills and your experiences to understand how they might relate to project management. Perhaps there is something transferable, but skills like communication, leadership, organization, problem solving, I think would be particularly relevant as well. And then, of course, perhaps look at the appropriate education and training, like some of the courses that we've looked at today, certainly do help people, even new to people. There are courses that are not, going to start you off right at very high practitioner levels or anything like that. But certainly, look at getting some certifications behind you as well, and gaining some practical experience. But I think it would start off, especially transitioning from that particular career. Was it AV integration space? I believe that might be audio visual, is it? Or I'm not too sure. But I think self-assessment and some goal setting would be a good place to start when you transition across to a new career.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, next question we have then is, which course would you suggest for developing the soft skills to improve relationships within a project team when conflicts arise? Paddy.
I'm a big champion of soft skills, so that's why I thought I'd put my hand up immediately. And it's a bit of a misleading word, I think. So I I always say to people, soft skills are hard, right? We know that they are difficult. So I like to use human skills, because I think within the age of AI that we're living in right now, sometimes we do have to distinguish between those, skills that AI can do versus humans. And I think, for me, the facilitation aspect, so facilitation within project management and general project methodologies, I think is a super, super useful skill, because if we're trying to future-proof ourselves, we've got to think about, where am I going to add value as a human being? And there's many tools that are going to come out in the future where a lot of the legwork is going to be done for us through AI. Yes, we're going to need some human intervention, but I think when you have a diverse group of people you're working with, then AI is not going to fix those team dynamics. And as we've seen in one of the case studies today, it's so important having somebody who's able to walk into a room and really bring that team together in some way. And that facilitation skill set, I think, is absolutely imperative. And often we don't always manage the people. They're not people that report into us directly. So how do we influence them? How do we bring everybody's voice to the table? And I think that's where that skill set for me is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, panel. Okay, our next question is, what would you recommend as the key to ensuring project values and benefits are maintained? Ian.
I'm going to try a project management joke, so you can tell me if it's better or worse than Paddy's. So it's what are the 3 critical success factors of a project? Communication, communication, and communication. So, and I guess when we talk about kind of values and benefits, kind of like, if we can't communicate all of this, if we can't, it's begin with the end in mind, isn't it? Kind of what's the value, what's the benefit that we want to achieve, and then the project's the plan to kind of get us to that. But if we can't communicate that out to multiple different stakeholders, then it's a case of, we're going to struggle. So really, it's, for me, it's just about communication.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Ian. Right, lovely. Thanks, panel. That's the end of our live questions section. I'm just going to ask you for your closing thoughts for our audience today. What would you like to leave them with? So, Ian, we'll start with you.
I think what's come through really clearly over this kind of all the great questions and the case studies is just about the people side of projects. And actually, really, there isn't a magic formula. There isn't a kind of a secret sauce, if you like, that says to run your projects effectively, you must do this. It's actually a recipe of things. It's actually, everything that was spoken about today. Something you said earlier, Ellie, it's kind of something that's quite complex, isn't it? And need multiple skills. And actually, that's true. To successfully run projects isn't just a one or the other. It's a combination of things. And I think if you've got those skills, if you've got all of these skills at your disposal, I think you're in a really good place to be able to run projects.
Yeah, and complexity is what makes it so interesting, Ian. Ryan, what's your thought of the day that you'd like to leave our audience with, please?
Well, I agree with what Ian was saying there. Sometimes if you look at a recipe has got it's got ingredients. Those ingredients also have quantities to them. So you can get the ingredients right, but if you don't get the quantities right, the dish might taste quite awful. And Gordon's likely to kick you out the kitchen. So it's very important, I think, that anybody that is looking to start a career in project management, look at some of the stuff that we've spoken about today. A lot of these courses are going to be very, very good for you. They're going to help you out tremendously and help you to really build the skills that you do need and the understanding. It's something that you can apply in the real world. As a senior project management tutor, I have people that come to me initially in the beginning of their learning journey very often, and they say to me, look, do you think I can do this? I've never done this before. This is very new to me. These are a lot of big words. There's new terminology, there's new jargon. And, I found that engaging with people is very, very helpful because, when you're learning a language, the only way that you ever become fluent in it is by conversing. And I think that if anybody out there wants to build on their current skills, these are great courses to do that. And if anybody, feels like they do have a lot of these skills, don't be shy. Don't let your dreams pass you by. Take the step. Start making these plans and looking into what your sort of skill set is, and look at a tailored approach for your skill set, courses that will go along with what you can do. And anybody, if they put their head down and they really have the passion for it, can work in project management. And I've seen it so many times. People that doubt themselves, that are now very skilled, very well paid project managers, that initially completely doubted themselves. So don't ever doubt yourself.
Absolutely great advice. Thank you so much, Ryan. Paddy, your thoughts for today, please.
Oh, I feel I've got to say something inspiring because my fellow panelists have really inspired me. So I'm going to go with that theme. Earlier this week, I got to speak to a wonderful lady, a lady called Bonita Norris, and she's the youngest British female to have climbed Mount Everest, or at least she was back then. I think her record's been broken more recently. But I asked her the question, I said, what was the most important thing for you in your team? And she said, well, I was a 22-year-old. And she said, I didn't really need managing. I had never done this before. There was so many scary parts to this journey. But she said, the thing that really helped her was the leadership around her and the people that helped lead her on this journey. And in some ways, I think, that's quite pertinent to project management. We often think of the PM role as the project manager, when really we're project leaders. And there are many junior people, there are many people who are finding this project scary. They just need a little bit of inspiration sometimes. They need someone who's got a level head and can get through all of that complexity. And so, yeah, I'd say, really focus on your leadership style, because people are looking up to you. They don't just want to be managed, they want to be led.
Yeah, great. That's great advice. Thank you, Paddy. Also, obviously, she's been fundamental to our event today, but hasn't been able to be here. Let's hear the thought that Cath would like to leave you with.
So let's wrap it all up. Gosh, that was a bit exciting, wasn't it? I was so excited when I got all of my paddles. I hope you saw my video on opening my paddles. So I haven't used some of them. I didn't use earn value at all, but hopefully some of my colleagues did. It's very challenging to say one specific course for any of these problems, because nearly always there's a multitude of issues. So part of this, is down to what you can actually afford, or your program or your company can afford to do. So do reach out to any authorized training organizations. Good ones should be able to give you advice on what course to take and why that would be helpful. So come back to us with some understanding of what your problem space is, whether it be for your team or for you as an individual. We'd love to help.
Thank you, Cath. And we're very sorry that you couldn't be here today, but what a valuable contribution, even though it was remote. And thank you to all of our panel. You've all been amazing. And I'm sure you've left our audience with a lot of food for thought on where they go next in their project management career. So audience, if you'd like to hear more from anyone on today's show, there will be an option at the end of the event to schedule one-to-one consultations with any of our experts. So please do sign up for that and take advantage of their expertise. So thank you, panel. We're now going to go over and find out who our lucky winners are. Okay, so the winners of our competition are Catherine Perry and Richard Allsort. So Catherine and Richard, I hope you're there in the audience watching. Congratulations. Our team will be in touch to get your address details and get a copy of these books over to you. So happy reading, and we hope that you enjoy them. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. We hope you've picked up some valuable tips for building your skills in project management. For more information about any of the products that you've heard talked about today, please head over to our website, apmginternational.com. We do look forward to seeing you at our next event, and take care till then. Bye, everyone.